All right, let's talk about globalization. It's this huge word we hear thrown around all the time, right? But what does it actually mean? What are the forces that are really truly shaping our incredibly connected world? Well, that's what we're going to unpack today.
I mean, think about it. You can order coffee beans that were grown in Ethiopia, you can stream a movie that was made in South Korea, and you can jump on a video call with colleagues in India, all in the same afternoon. This level of connection just feels normal now, but the theories that try to explain how it all works, well, they're all over the map. So where do you even start to make sense of it all?
Okay, so first things first, let's get a solid definition on the table. At its core, globalization is all about interdependence. It's this incredibly dense web of connections, political, economic, and technological, that links all of us together. And our job today is to try and untangle that web.
You know, probably the best way to get our heads around this is to think of it like a giant jigsaw puzzle. There's no one single theory that explains everything. Nope. Instead, there are four major pieces, four big ideas. And by looking at each one, we can start to assemble the full, and frankly, really complex picture. So here's the plan. We're going to start with a view that's all about power and states. Then we'll look at a more optimistic take, one that focuses on cooperation. After that, a really practical approach about just solving problems. And finally, we'll dive into a critical view that looks at capitalism and inequality. Then we'll put it all together.
All right, let's grab our first piece of the puzzle. This one is called political realism. For realists, the world stage is pretty simple. It's all about power, it's all about security, and the only players that really matter are states.
The realist worldview is basically a zero-sum game. Think of it like a pie. There's only so much to go around. So if one country gets a bigger slice, that means another country has to get a smaller one. It's a deeply competitive way of seeing the world. Now keep that other image in mind, the handshake, because we're going to come back to that one in a bit.
So why do realists see the world this way? Well, it boils down to these core ideas. First, states are the stars of the show. Second, the international system is pure anarchy. There's no world government, no global 911 you can call for help. That leads to a self-help system where every state has to look out for number one, and because of that, they're obsessed with relative gains. It's not enough to be doing well, you have to be doing better than your rivals.
And this is the absolute key to understanding the realist view of globalization. All those economic connections, all that trade, it's nice, but it's not what matters most. For a realist, security always, and I mean always, comes first. A trade war isn't just about money. It's about one country trying to get a security edge over another, and that drive for security will always win out over the potential profits from global trade. Okay, let's slot in our second puzzle piece. And this one, it paints a very different picture. Liberal internationalism offers a much more hopeful vision, one that's built around the idea of cooperation and shared progress. Remember that handshake? This is where it comes in. Liberals see the world as a positive-sum game. Instead of fighting over a fixed pie, they believe we can work together to bake a much bigger pie for everyone. The thinking is, as our economies get more and more tangled up through things like the World Trade Organization, the cost of going to war just becomes way too high. It creates a massive incentive to cooperate and keep the peace.
Now, this isn't some brand new idea. It's actually evolved in waves. The first wave, a couple centuries ago, was all about free trade and democracy. But then the world wars happened, so a second wave came along, focused on building big institutions like the UN to prevent that kind of disaster from ever happening again. And today, we're in a third wave, sort of a renaissance, focused on using this whole multilateral system to tackle the huge challenges of globalization.
Now for our third piece of the puzzle, functionalism. This one takes a totally different angle. It's less about high-minded politics and grand theories, and much more about just getting stuff done.
The core idea here is actually kind of brilliant. It says, look, let's not start with the big, messy political fights that divide us. Instead, let's build cooperation from the ground up. And we do that by creating international agencies to solve shared, practical, technical problems. Think about things like making sure mail gets delivered between countries, coordinating air traffic control, or even tackling a global health crisis.
And this leads to a really cool concept called spillover. The theory goes like this. When you get experts from different countries working together to solve a technical issue, say through an agency like UNESCO on education, you build habits of cooperation.
You build trust, and that positive energy can then spill over into the more difficult political areas, making broader peace possible. It's a bottom-up strategy for building a better world.
All right, time for our fourth and final piece of the puzzle. The Marxist perspective offers a powerful, critical look at globalization. It doesn't see a path to peace or progress, but instead sees a system defined by economic power, class, and exploitation.
So here's the bottom line for the Marxist view. Globalization isn't some neutral, natural force. Not at all. They see it as simply the latest stage in the global expansion of capitalism. And in their view, that system is fundamentally designed to create and reinforce deep inequalities between social classes and between entire countries. It shapes everything.
To really get this, you have to understand their core periphery model. Marxists argue that the world economy is not a level playing field. It's structured with a wealthy core of advanced nations that benefits by extracting cheap labor and raw materials from a less developed periphery. And in this system, the state isn't a neutral umpire. It's an agent working to protect the interests of the dominant capitalist class.
Okay, we've looked at all four pieces of our puzzle. We've seen four very different ways of looking at the world. Now let's lay them all out on the table and see how they stack up against each other. This chart really pulls it all together, doesn't it? You've got realism with states fighting for power in a zero-sum game. You've got liberalism with states and institutions working together for mutual gain. You've got functionalism focusing on agencies collaborating to solve problems. And then Marxism, which sees social classes in a struggle driven by capitalist expansion. Just look at the contrast.
So, what's the big takeaway from all this? It's that no one of these puzzle pieces gives you the whole picture. The realist obsession with security, the liberals' hope for cooperation, the functionalist practical problem-solving, and the Marxist critique of inequality, the truth is all of these things are happening, all at the same time. Real understanding only comes when you see how these powerful and often competing forces all crash into each other.
So, we'll leave you with this question to chew on. Now that you've seen the pieces of the puzzle, which one do you think best explains the world you see around you? When you turn on the news or read an article, which lens helps it all make the most sense? The answer probably changes depending on what you're looking at, and that, right there, is the beautiful complexity of globalization.